A very warm welcome to Capital Sports 3.0. I am your singular host tonight, Alan Moore, because the rest of them have abandoned me. Well, that's not quite true. Easel's looking after a sick puppy, that's Brian. Andrew Flint is busy celebrating FC2 Men's promotion to the Graveyard Division, that is the first division here in Russia. And there's a couple of others who are meant to be out tonight, but they have basically, one has been tied up, and the other one is actually mid-Atlantic right now, so flying all the way back to Ireland. But I'm going to keep us entertained for the rest of the hour, or around that plus minus, because there's been a lot going on. A lot has happened in the last little while. One reason why I think that Iseult was not so keen on coming on was basically because we were going to play this for her because it would make her cry. And you'll understand why in just one moment. And I think Iseult's watching right now, so Iseult, my apologies for this. It was a setup that you would enjoy with us, but here you go.
It's about, that's what all his idiosyncratic physical and mental training is about. But what you're seeing right there, he's not a matrix. He's flesh, he's blood, he's aspiration.
To me, it's the gentleman he is was proven inside that ring, because he could have taken a cheap shot at Devin and at the commission and whatever he wanted to, and he chose to take the high road. And that just goes to show who Vasili Lomachenko is. He knew that it wasn't the right time for him to.
Vasili Lomachenko, of course, he also known as Loma. That's what Iseult calls him, Loma. Basically, he lost his bid to go up yet another weight and win in the world. Of course, it was a very, very difficult task for him to do because he's moved up all the way from featherweight. People don't think, they think, like half a stone is not that much, or even a stone is not that much. But trust me, as a boxer, it does make a big difference. And when you're a smaller man, you're at my height. And when you're trying to move up against guys who are coming down from higher weight, so for example, at 9 stone, or would have been 57 kilos, he was coming down from normally 65 kilos or 70 kilos at the very, very most. But 65 he would walk around because he's not like a tub goat. Then when he's trying to go up another weight, you've got guys who are coming down, for example, to 60 kilos or even 65 kilos, and they're coming down from 80 and above. So it's a very difficult situation. Again, his age is counted against him as well. And, so basically, it could be good night, Lola. Another not good evening for Katie Taylor. I'll reserve my own comments on her. She lost last night to Chantal. My goodness, I say Norman from the UK. Cameron, I should say. Sorry, not Norman. Chantal Cameron. Of course, she was moving up a weight to challenge her. And again, age told against her. Also, the weight difference does make a huge difference. Let's put it this way. You're punching with greater power than the person who's live at you. So it's always going to be a bit of an ask. So basically, 2 of Iseult's people gone down the drain. We also know that at the moment that Spurs also, they lost yesterday to Brentford 3-1. An awful lot going on. Of course, we see Liverpool are going to miss out on Champions League football. Now, Liverpool, we've said this all season. We said it last August. We're going to play this discussion we had with Andrew Flint and Iseult Coley. The situation surrounding Jurgen Klopp and his basically Borussia breakdown moments. This week, he was banned. He wasn't at the games this weekend. He was banned for 2 games for his abuse of the officials. And of course, we do understand what he said, how he said it, and he basically was making accusations against the referee, which were proven to be completely false because, of course, there's a mic on the referee. So the recording from what exchange took place was completely wrong. And the referee was actually quite nice and quite polite to him. Jurgen Klopp, he got a 2-match ban plus a £75,000 fine. So a lot of money gone, and of course a lot of players gone as well, because we do know that Roberto Firmino, the beloved of the Klopp, he is gone. His last game this weekend. Naby Keita, James Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Kevin Kelter, the Irish goalkeeper, all look like the first guys are out, and Keller looks like he's going to go as well. So it's a huge, big problem facing Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool right now. On top of that, they're going to finish 5th. They're going to go into the Europa League group stage. Good. They've got European football. What's the problem? Well, the big problem is this. First of all, players are not going to want to go and play in the Europa League. That's just a fact. We saw it, for example, many years ago, working with Lokomotiv Moscow. You get a certain level of player going to a team in the Europa League. And it could be a good young player who's on his way up, who wants to go show himself off at that level, make an impression, and then move up to a Champions League team. You've got older players who are very experienced and are experienced at Champions League level, and they're happy to, for example, to drop down to the Europa League to get their way back up again. But the quality is not fully there. But when you have Champions League, you can get really quality players in. You get players that you shouldn't really get in any case. If you get Champions League group stage, you'll get 1 or 2 players that in a lifetime they would never join your club. And it's not about the money, it is about the exposure. And of course, it would be the money, the bonuses that are written into the Champions League contracts as well. Liverpool, this season, are going to bag around 50 million from the Champions League experience. Of course, they went out in around 16, but they're going to get around 50 million euros. That's a huge amount of money, big budget. And of course, the Fenway Sports Group, who are looking after them, they are interested in money. That's all they want. Remember, they wanted to buy Moneyball from the Oakland days. They developed their own version of Moneyball, which is big Moneyball and lots of drugs as well, with the Boston Red Sox to go and win the World Series in baseball. But also, they're looking at what's happening with Liverpool now. They do want to sell. They've been putting feelers out everywhere. They've even enticed a group that are associated with not a Saudi family, but a family in the Middle East, Kuwaiti family. So they've been speaking with a Kuwaiti family. So that's a bit of news. So a Kuwaiti family linked to the Royals are looking at buying Liverpool. Nothing much there. There have been discussions. There have been some financial show and so on. So this is a serious bid. We'll see what's going to happen with this. Liverpool are going to lose about half their revenue next year in the Europa League. If they have a perfect group stage, they win every single match in the group stage, they go all the way through and win the final, they're going to bag around 20 to 25 million. That's if they have a perfect group stage and go and win the bloody thing. If not, they're going to be dropping down under 20 million. Okay, so again, it's a huge drop for a club that are based on money, that need money to survive and need money to keep up with Manchester City, who of course are crown champions this weekend, as Arsenal lost 1-0 to Tottenham, not Spurs. Right, so Klopp is for the chop. We've discussed this in the past. We have proved it. We've said it. We're keeping banging this drum, and not because of any reason against Jurgen Klopp. I've met the man. I don't know him, but I've met the man a number of times. I have very good positive emotions about him. He is a very hard-nosed professional. He does what it takes to win. He will push his players into a wall to get them to win, and he's not done it, but he has, he has his special bottles and he knows everything with sports science. He wants to win. It's not going to happen with Liverpool. It's not going to happen with Liverpool, and he understands this and he knows this. So this is what we discussed at the start of the season, and this is what's playing out right now in Anfield. Enjoy.
Good. Good.
I don't know. I saw nothing. I really don't like this. I'm really disappointed. I have to say.
Hoffentlich.
Now, of course, Jurgen has 4 more years on his contract. He's getting a lot of money for doing what he does and doing what he loves. That, of course, is coaching football. However, the situation is this. He has spent a lot of money. The money has not been coming back in. The results have not been good in the pitch. The people around him are, I will say, snakes. So, guys, if you just give me a moment, I'm going to outline why Jurgen is for the chop. First of all, he has something called the 7-year itch. Okay, this is explained to me by 2 people who worked with him. One is a friend of his for long standing who said he has a 7-year itch. Now, I've met Jurgen on a number of occasions based in Germany, when I was in Germany. Great guy. I have, as a person, I have the greatest respect for him. I think he's very, very good. As a football coach, I think he's awesome. He is a sociopath, as in he really wants to win. But there is a depth there that he also, I would say it's almost like bordering on religious, because he's a mix of Lutheran and Catholic. That's not a good mix in any case, but in most senses, but he really tried to bring that forward. So he spent an awful lot of money for I'm sorry, the guys are laughing at that. So he spent a lot of money. They have lost in his time almost $200 million on transfer fees. Now, people, the sort of the finance pros and the sort of the experts will say, well, he made so much money back and he's made the money. yes, they have been successful getting to the Champions League and winning and so on, but the transfer dealings are where it counts for the Fenway Sports Group. He has not been happy with the players that he's been given. He has wanted different players, more players, and the difficulty in Liverpool, okay, at Liverpool FC, is there are people who are involved in the Fenway Sports Group, their partners, people involved in the club who are telling tales to the owners. Okay, so this is where the biggest problem is. He's not a man in control of his own destiny. Another issue for Jurgen as well is that he has become bigger than the club. He is now Liverpool, and he doesn't like that. It's a huge amount of pressure, and he also sees that long term, it's not going to work. Okay, he has brought the club as far as he could, and now it's time to step back. He did it at Dortmund. At Mainz, he was lucky he got out just after he made a small club into a decent club, a Bundesliga top level club. But with Dortmund, he brought them as far as he could, and he realised he had to get out because people were setting players for him. He got an ex-Man U player, Henrik Mkhitaryan. He was brought into the Borussia side. It wasn't what he wanted. Ultimately, the case is down to Jurgen. He is at the point now that he has run out of patience. And my thesis is that due to the interference in the transfer policies, due to the pressure coming off from the club, due to internal arguments he's had with the club, he's had a huge falling out with the chairman of the club of Liverpool this in May. This is all boiling down to a point where he just is going to say, okay, genug, which is enough in German, and he will leave. He also has some really not nice people there with him that he has brought in. One of them is an assistant coach who is doing his best to undermine him, and he has the ear of the chairperson of the club. So I'll start off not with a Man U fan. Isolt, am I too far-fetched with this idea?
Okay, so I suppose there's a lot of interesting points you've raised there. I think obviously the Liverpool match was actually not shown on TV here on any of the main stations, and as big a win as this weekend was for them in terms of the goal scoring, it was against a team that they should be beating every day of the week. So let's not take that for anything more. But the discussion was that one of the owners was in attendance, or someone from the Fenway Group, which I think speaks volumes about the position in terms of on the back of the United result. That if they have someone coming over straight away, what does that suggest? Was it a planned attendance, or is this a message being sent to the sideline and the dressing room that they were not impressed with what went on the week before in terms of the result against United? There are also still 4 days left in the transfer window, and it doesn't look like anything is going to come Liverpool's way to bolster up a squad that, when you strip it back, let's just ignore yesterday's result and treat it like what it was. Is there the depth of players with the injuries that they need? And if this is always going to be a case of a team that are going to come second or do well in the Champions League, is that what the owners actually want? Are they aiming for the Champions League, or are they aiming for Premier League success? And if you are aiming for Premier League success, if it's a battle between Klopp and Pep, there's only going to be one winner in terms of not just coaching prowess, and I'm not suggesting that's it, but in terms of who is going to have the bigger resources. And I think that it also boils down to the fact of, does Klopp want to be forever number 2 to Pep? Because it's not just, when you say about the 7-year itch, we all know about Pep's ability to go on rotation. That's always been his approach. Would you always want to be coming second? And I think Klopp also has an ego, and let's not treat him like he doesn't. Do I think he's a great manager? Yes. Do I think he has possibly got the best out of the Liverpool team that he can get compared with other teams? Yes. Liverpool have exceeded under his stewardship what I think they are capable of as a group in terms of compared with the teams. Also, he plays certain players, we had this discussion in our house on Friday night, in the wrong position, and gets away with it. So it's him as a manager is a great thing. Do I think Liverpool have a team that can beat Man City repeatedly over a number of years to make them the team of this era? No, and Klopp won't change that.
This is it, Andrew. We said on air, I stuck to it that every single year, 2017, Man City would win it. We said it at the start of the season after a few games. 2018, Man City would win it. 2019, if you remember, we only reported on second place. That we only spoke about who's going to finish second, who's going to finish second. I know we covered Spurs a lot because it was like Spurs were fighting, were up at the top of the table and hunting for, a Champions League spot. 2020, I published an article and we spoke about it on air with expert people like Jonathan Higgins, for example, and Peter Staunton, that Liverpool were a busted flush team, weren't going to win. We predicted everything was going to happen. Last year, we predicted Man City were going to win. Now, I know we had a bit of a tussle with Andy Mack, who really wanted to sort of like needle me and just hope that I would fail. But I just saw what Liverpool were doing. I saw what was going on. But is it a case that Jurgen will walk, or will he be stabbed in the back?
I can't see him walking. I mean, look, you sort of covered some very, very important points to bear in mind of this. A large part of his current and potentially future Liverpool career is guided by his rivalry with Manchester City. They're the only realistic rivals that Liverpool have. The problem being that Manchester City are just an absolute machine. And I can't look. Jurgen Klopp functions on the power of personality, and it is infectious if he's on your side. The players clearly respond to him. And I don't think he's really going to walk into another job where he'll get quite so much control. Now, you mentioned the size of Klopp becoming as big as, if not bigger than, the club itself. I don't think I quite agree with that. But he's not going to be as big as he is at Liverpool anywhere else, and I think his ego won't be fed by changing scenery. Now, the thing is, will he be satisfied? Well, like you say, will he be satisfied with second place? Liverpool have potential to challenge Manchester City every year, but I think one thing we need to bear in mind is you mentioned the transfer policy. The recruitment that Liverpool have done has, on the whole, you'd have to say, been very, very good over the last 7 years. And one key part of that, leaving Liverpool, Michael Edwards, I think is a very, very important part of it, because I don't think Liverpool would have been left in this position if he was still there. The midfield is a problem. We saw that against Manchester United. A midfield three, Harvey Elliott will become a very good player, no doubt, but James Milner can only do so much. Jordan Henderson is not a creator, and suddenly you've got a deadwood midfield. Now, when the players are all fit and Jurgen Klopp's in the right mood and the grass is not too dry for him and the wind isn't too windy and all that, then look, I joke about it, but those little comments that people laugh at, then they laugh again, and then you think, well, hang on a minute, we're laughing quite regularly now. How much of that is him playing to the gallery? I think a part of it is, but I'm actually starting to think, hang on a minute, he's using these jokey excuses quite a lot, and this is starting to undermine his actual ability. He is a phenomenal coach. He is a phenomenal motivator. And for those reasons, I don't think he'll walk. And I don't think he will. I don't think it's possible to stab him in the back either. However much people behind the scenes may want him out, it's very hard to remove Jurgen Klopp. He is immensely popular, understandably, with Liverpool fans. The question is, where does he go from here? There aren't many options.
No, and this is it, because we have a question has come in before. I want to play another clip. A question has come in from friends of ours in Verona. Just said, does Jurgen have a place to go? Maybe Russia. Now, of course, this is the issue that I raised as well today in an article, that there's no way, no other team in England, like Newcastle did make an approach. They sounded out his agent. The agent said no, he wouldn't go. And I don't think it was down to feeling dodgy about Saudi money, because if Fenway Sports Group have investments on things that also raise hairs in the back of your head. The other issue as well is that there's no one in Italy going to take him. Barcelona could try to break the bank, but that means he's going to step into Pep's old shoes. Same with Bayern Munich. Eintracht Frankfurt, who he used to be involved would love to get him, but they're not going to break the bank as well. China, there's not going to be very much in there. Maybe America, but he's still quite young. And the German national job, he's around 5 years away from that at least. The plan that, according to one of his oldest friends, is that when he finishes his contract this time in Liverpool, he would go out to that. Quick question for both before I play a small clip and then come back to this to round it off. Andrew, start with you because you were last. Does he have a place to go? Can another club afford him?
Well, no, in short, I don't think. When I said where do you go from here, what I really actually meant was where do you go from here with Liverpool? Where could anybody realistically take Liverpool from here? And I'm not talking with my Manchester United fan hat on there. I genuinely am not. But when you got such a one-dimensional rivalry, and I don't see it as a true rivalry in the sense that, we grew up with 20 years ago. I was lucky. I grew up with the Arsenal-Manchester United rivalry, and that was a proper battle. Not because they were the two best teams. They probably were, but there were so many teams that were competing, keeping each on their toes. But Manchester United and Arsenal had the edge. There's nobody really realistically pushing from behind, and yet can he overtake Manchester City? No. So where can he go? Being runners-up to Manchester City is no disgrace. Will he win the Champions League? I think there's a chance he could do. I mean, that probably is his most realistic chance of success. But
no, Premier League, I think, is gone. Isold, now Isold, you need to turn the light because you're getting very, very dark unless you're getting tan as we're going on. What do you reckon? Is there a place for him to go?
Let me multitask. So I will turn this light down in a minute because it's a bit hard. In terms of when you're saying where does he go, my concern isn't that he's suddenly going to start beating City, because let's be realistic. My concern is he has two options. There's to consistently win the Champions League so you're considered a success, which isn't going to happen consistently. Or the bigger concern is you start to no longer be number 2. You go to 3, you go to 4, and that's the problem. Your only way is down, in a way that Pep's only way is to go, oh, things aren't going great. Let's look to see what we can bring in or what we can change. Like, City are a team that when they go behind, you never feel, even when they're 2-0 down, you're going, oh, they're going to win this. Like, there's never that doubt. And I think the concern for Liverpool is that Liverpool have the potential to take losses against teams that aren't in their league in terms of talent or in terms of what they have in the back room. And realistically, where can Klopp go? PSG? Is that it? Is that the option?
And then what? He'll win. He'll saunter to Ligue 1, and he will win a Champions League.
So if we say about him going, and I know I'm going on here, but if we say about him going into the German job, like, if you don't want to go from a Liverpool team that are consistently number 2 to your national squad. You need to leave on a high. So the options for him are win the Champions League and go, this is a high, and walk away now because I'm on a high, or else on a low point. And it's very difficult because it's not reflective. In any other era, he would be the manager of the moment. The problem is Pep is just Pep.
That's it. And look, it's also in every sense he's second to Pep, because Pep is the highest paid manager in the English Premier League by 3 million sterling more than him. Good play this clip, and then we'll finish off this segment, which is a very, very quick hot take from both of you before we go on to the fake boxing nonsense. So here we go. This is October 2014 or 15, excuse me, right after Brendan Rodgers had been fired by Liverpool. The problems then have not changed. This is the thing that we have to understand. Everything that's happened then, the same people are involved, the same people are in charge, the same people are working at the club. Nothing, trust me, nothing has changed. And this has been a frustration for many people who are involved in the club for many, many years, especially in the footballing side. So just listen to what they have to say, because this is coming from inside. First is Thierry Henry. I have to spit that out of my mouth. And as I said, it's not just me. I've worked in football and I know what goes on. And I saw, for example, with Jörg Berger in Eintracht Frankfurt, how he was undermined by people within the club. And the whole thing was, he needs to push the players harder. He's being too nice. He's a kind of a rescue. He comes in as a firefighter. He rescues the teams when they're down in the relegation positions. And they got rid of him and brought in a guy who, I mean, I'll leave it for now, but like people would know from one of his last coaching jobs in Fulham, ex-German international, very good guy, and his first statement to the media was, "I'm going to make these players work. They've had it too easy under the previous coaching people. I'm going to make them work," which is a pure nonsense. It was absolute nonsense. The player was fit. There was a fit before he came in as when he was eventually fired. Andrew, long and short of it, is there going to be a Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool this time next year, or will he be gone, fired, or what?
I think he'll still be there. He'll still be doing a very good job. I just don't think he will have overtaken Pep by then, because who can? I think he'll still stay.
I'm going to I feel the need to point this out. If Jamie Carragher had a Manchester accent, that speech he's just given before Klopp came in could be Gary Neville giving a speech about every Manchester United managerial appointment since Fergie, in terms of what's going on in the background. And it's ironic. Do I think he'll be there? I think it all depends on the Champions League this year. I think Klopp is not an idiot. I think he knows the Premier League. If he doesn't win it this year, he's going to know that that's the way it's going to continue, realistically. And I think if you win something like the Champions League, you go out on a high, because stay around, because the only way you were going is down. And I think he's too good a manager to be remembered or associated with failure.
Too good a manager to be associated with failure. Didn't win the league, didn't win the Champions League, and it's not going to be Champions League next year. So I think it's as in Russia, it's like clear as me on the screen right now that he is not going to be at Liverpool for long, much longer to say. Last night, of course, it was a great win. Keane just reminded me about Leinster losing against La Rochelle, so it was very good for Ireland way, because it was Ronan O'Gara is the coach of La Rochelle. There's also a player from Munster with them there in France as well. So well done, La Rochelle. Leinster, they choked, simply choked. It was a bad giveaway. They were leading by 17 points to nil. They missed 2 kicks. Both, I think, came off the upright. That would have put them well in the lead, 21 points to nil up. And I think that would have finished them off. Started very well, then started to panic. And there was something really, really depressing to see how they fell apart in the end. And also when they went for touch instead of kicking for 3 points, they were 1 point in. They lost by 1 point. So they'd gone for a penalty, which they had, put 3 points on the board, gone 2 points into the lead. Then they could defend it, but unfortunately didn't. And, better team kind of won on the day, 2 in a row for La Rochelle, the top level, and there you go. And of course, it was a double because also Toulouse won in the Toulon won in the second tier as well of European rugby. Last night, yesterday or this morning, there were a number of fights that were very notable also on the card with Devin Haney and Vasili Lomachenko. One of them ended in a really particularly nasty knockout. The knockout itself wasn't that bad. It was actually an even enough fight, not so much in it, between 2 pretty decent fighters. There was a slightly older fighter from at that weight. This is a super flyweight, so you're talking around 8 stone 3, so about 52 kilos, I would say, 52 and a half. Andrew Maloney, doing very, very well. A decent fighter, had moved up from flyweight as well as his Japanese opponent, Yunto Nakatani. Nakatani, very, very good fighter, very smart, but Maloney was quite a good battler, and I would put him up there with any of the decent fighters at that weight that I've seen in action over the years, including Baby Jake Matlala or any of the Dave Boy McCauley, who I sparred and have great respect for. So he was very, very good. But the ending of the fight was difficult to watch, but even more difficult to watch and to listen to was the American commentators, which made it sound like UFC, and it was quite disgusting. And you'll see what I mean now in just a moment. I'll play this clip through. It's about 30 seconds. You can think for yourselves.
Championship 1 for Nakatani.
Absolute devastating dynamite power by Nakatani, and now there is a situation in the ring with Maloney. They need medical attention in there right away. That was as brutal of a single punch as you will ever see.
The volume from the commentator is something that, he's sitting ringside. The fighters can hear this, people can hear this. So again, this sounds more like UFC than anything else. And again, it was a bit, I don't know, unnerving, shall we say. And it's not something nice, and it's not something I would associate boxing with. Now, maybe I'm too old school. Maybe I've grown up with, great sports commentators and boxing commentators like our Ireland's Jimmy McGee or Harry Carpenter from the UK. People who actually knew the game, knew the fighters, and actually called a very, very good fight, not this sort of like screaming and look at me, because the commentator should not be involved. I understand the surprise, the shock. It was a shocking knockout, but the reaction to it and the shouting, again, that's heard in the ring. It is heard in the ring, so just so people know that. We're going to move on now. We've got Eastland and Andrew Flint again having a discussion about something that actually all parents do think about. All parents do think about this. They all have an understanding of this as well, about their own children's sexuality, and something that we've discussed on the show before in a wide range of ways, and something that I think needs to be discussed even further. I've got some comments in, so I'll come back on them in just one moment. And also stay on if you want to hear something really life-altering, mind-opening, eye-opening, life-changing. The second half of the show will really, really switch around. But anyway, in the meantime, we're going to go straight away to this one from last year. It was something that we really discussed. It was extremely important. It was really emotional for us. And as a parent of boys and girls, so to take it to heart and to kind of understand where this comes from. We had a great discussion as well with Cian McGibney about this as well, who was watching tonight, so Cian Howley. This is very, very important to listen. I think it's something we need to understand and not be negative about, and not be angry about, because again, parents are parents. You want the best for your kids, even if your kid's annoying. And I do make a joke with this as well. The kids do annoy you. Sometimes you want to just give them a kick in the backside. I know many times I say, Tim, Jesus, would you stop? But then I give them a hug and tell them I love them. But this is something I think is lost in the discussion. I think a lot of parents are fearful of this. And I think, unfortunately, then there's a lobby of people who are really making mischief. They're not good people who we've seen who've been on with us, for example, like Kristen Worley or Inga Thompson, who actually will talk and communicate and actually try to come to a consensus on things. They're actually people who are actually up to no good, and people who basically are very lost in themselves and very angry in themselves and very angry at the world, and people who just need a good boot in the arse. Excuse me for saying that, but they just basically are not doing it for the right reasons. They're not able to talk, not able to communicate, and to scream people down. And unfortunately, a lot of parents feel burdened with this. So this is a discussion we had between the three of us. And again, I think we were very honest, very, very open. Again, I was very fearful I was going to get everybody kicking over this, but here you go. And we see it, and I've discussed this as well, about, gay is somehow a symptom or a signal that you're weak, that you are weak. And the focus is on that. No one, like, and it's sort of, it flips for lesbians, because a lesbian then it must be you're tough, you're a butch, you're a man. So it's kind of this weird thing, this dichotomy in our society, in our minds, that we just can't put it together. And yes, I agree with you both. I think it's very important that the respect is there. It's very important that people are brave enough to come out and say it's an awful, awful, sad place, an awful, sad place that we have to do this. And I'll say this, and you both can disagree with me, and I'll probably get myself cancelled for this even more. As a parent, you do worry about your child being gay. You would wish, in a way, and I'm saying this personally, and I've discussed with other parents as well, and I'm saying this from purely, I'm not going to say what other people said, saying they have said, saying you would wish that they weren't, or that they wouldn't be, simply because while you love them and you adore your children, okay, they annoy you, you want to just kill them sometimes, but like, or just put them outside the street and just leave them. And I'll come back into the serious note in a moment, because I'm very Irish, I make a joke in something serious. But as you say, is that you would die to protect your child. But other people might not be so willing to do that. And also other people might not be, you don't care what, as long as your child is healthy, happy, and not doing harm on others.
Alan, that's exactly it. You want your children to be happy. The shortcut to that, sadly, exactly as you say, is the simple fact is right now, it would be simpler in a lot of societies, probably most societies around the world, if they were not gay. And it's not usually, it's not about the sexuality, it's about the happiness. The sad fact is it's a shortcut to that. I understand what you mean.
It's the fear of what they may have to endure.
This is look,
in terms of not from you, not from their friends, from those people out there who are so bigoted and filled with hatred that they just seem to have a hatred of gay people without any concept of the person. It's just a hatred of the idea of someone being different. And by different, not necessarily different, but different to what they feel like heterosexuality means that everyone's okay. It's just a warped view of society, and there's so many people who unfortunately have it. The same people who shout racist abuse, because those people exist. And all too frequently, they find the people, they actively go looking for people to abuse. It's not a case of just if you run into someone, it's an active thing.
And just using the slur. And I heard it at a Dundalk match on a live broadcast on RTE, a Dundalk match, and they're playing, and one of the other team who I think it played for Dundalk, I can't remember who it was, because some idiot, and you know from the Dundalk accent, and he shouted out, and I'm going to say this slur, he said, "Oh, you fucking queer." Queer is the local pronunciation for queer. And there was silence in the stadium at that moment. There was about 5,000-6,000 people there, and you could hear it. And I waited for a moment for the commentators to say something. But in a way, they didn't. And in a way, I think it was better because it just burned into my mind.
Effective.
And, when I'm thinking of one of the leading lights who worked with Shamrock Rovers to save them, is a gay man. He's now a married gay man. And I can say it, Buzz Maxwell. And he, is like within Shamrock Rovers fans who have a pretty nasty reputation. We saw it last week, what they were seeing about the late Elizabeth Windsor. They have that in them to be nasty, but yet for one of their own, you don't touch them. So it's this kind of weird thing.
But you have to imagine what it must be like. I think we discussed this when we were talking about the volleyball team in the US a few weeks ago. What must it be like to be a gay person in the crowd just as a fan, and you're hearing other people shouting that as an abusive slur? It's like, it's the message it sends home and the issues it causes, not just for the player on the field who's being called something, but for other people in the crowd.
Because immediately we're got way off on a different segment. Segue. Immediately you are, marked. There's something wrong with you, and we do know that, and I've heard it from people who are very educated. Gay people, there's something wrong with them. There's something not quite right. And when you brought up racism, and I think it's something again that is just, it's a reason to be an asshole. It's a reason to be a fool, a reason to be an idiot, a reason to discriminate, a reason to break people off. I was commentating today at there's a huge Nigerian diaspora in Russia, and there was a final between a team from St. Petersburg and a team from Moscow, all Nigerians, and it was organised by and it was great. So I was commentating on this and working with it, and I went beyond commentary at different points where I had to actually go and explain things and translate. But anyway, at one point, the team from Moscow were 2-0 down. Early in second half, they were 2-0 down. They scored 2 goals back. And their fans, there was quite a lot of them there, their fans were chanting, Moscow, Moscow. And I'm going, wait, hold on, you're Nigerians. But they said they're from St. Petersburg. They're St. Petersburg Nigerians, and we're Moscow Nigerians. For me, I couldn't help smile, and when I spoke, like they would come up and they were thanking me weirdly. Thank you so much for giving your time and commentating today. And I'm like, well, I got paid to do this. My job.
I'm not a nice person. I'm just grabbing the approvals here.
Yeah, I was working here, But I understood because again, there's that thing of where sometimes we discussed it before, the casual racial and so on. There are people who don't understand. There might be people who make gay jokes. One of my very good friends at university was gay, and he made gay jokes all the time. And I was so uncomfortable because I was like thinking, should you be saying that? And he goes, "Oh, it's okay, I can say it." But in saying that, you know, not being successful. Now, I do understand that from some of the things we spoke about already, some people might, you know, if you're offended by it, how the words we use that were being used as slurs, we're giving our own personal experience and also that our own viewpoints. As I said, as a parent, it is true. You do worry. You do feel for your kids when they're getting bullied, for example, when they're getting called names. My own son's been through it when he's been sort of isolated for being different, especially in this time at the moment in Russia, where it is difficult being a Westerner or perceived as a Westerner or perceived as different or against Russia, even though all you want to do is just live your life and get along. We saw that with our own radio show where we were being basically attacked and abused and bullied by people who many of them should have known better. Most of them, you wouldn't expect anything better because they said, like, you know, what would you expect from a pig but a grunt? People who basically insult because of where you're from your color, from your gender, everything. You know, who you want to love. Yeah, you're wrong, you're sick. Okay. You know, just please go outside and, you know, take a ticket. I've got enough problems to deal with. So again, when we say this about our kids, and as I mentioned, I've spoken with a lot of parents, and this is common theme when it does come up. And I thought it was mostly among dads, but then a couple of moms also says to me, a mom who's someplace with him, she simply said, "God, you know, like, you know, the other day he was like looking at something. There was like some naked man on it. I saw it on his phone, some GIF, and he was looking at a naked man. And his piece." I said, "And?" She goes, "Oh, like, you know, I was a bit worried he might be gay. I hate if he's gay." And I was like, "Well, hold on. You work in the fashion industry, you know, and so on and so forth." And she goes, "No, I'm not homophobe. I'm not a homophobe." She was trying to justify herself to me, and I was like, "You didn't need to do that." I know she's not a homophobe. However, her fear was he's looking at this photo, it'll turn him gay, or he might be gay, or maybe he's afraid to speak with me about it. Instead of that, a lot of men, boys, continues always through your life, worry about the size of your, well, member. So to look at a photo is not to say, "Oh, I like looking at it." It's like you look at it and go, "Okay," and then you look in the mirror. So try to explain that to her. Her husband basically said, "I've given up because she's just gone on a rant." And I said, "Okay." So when I explained to her, she said, "Oh, well, you must know," she added, "because you're from the West." It's like, okay, so there you go. So I'm an expert on this. Something happened this week in tennis that I think one of our regular viewers, or many regular viewers will like this. Simona Halep, we called it 6 months ago, well, last year, about her failed doping test. Now, the substance she failed for causes panic attacks and, you know, tightness of the chest and increased heart rate and so on and so forth, or perceived panic attacks. And that was one of the reasons why she actually, you know, she lost the match in the French Open last year, was because of this panic attack. And then she fails for a drug that causes panic attacks. She was working with a guy, Patrick Mouratoglou, who basically wouldn't look after your dog, not even Chachi or the Huskies. You wouldn't put anybody in this guy's charge because he's not a good person, especially he doesn't care about his athletes. Now, he sold her down to Swanee. As soon as she got busted, he sold her down to Swanee. And now she's been done again. And this is for the blood passports. They've noticed anomalies. Now, she started to say she's going to fight it, but already a week and a bit ago, sponsors were stepping back from Simona Halep. And it's an awful situation. A woman who has been through an awful lot. She's been through a marriage, divorce. She's been through a double breast reduction. She's been really, really to the forefront as well in Romania of helping a lot of underprivileged children. She's a really good person. If you ever meet her, she's a really nice, genuine person. A killer in many senses, but at the back of it all, she's very, very soft. She's now on her own, trying to face all of this, and her life will be destroyed. As I said, she's losing money. She could end up being sued for, I think, it's up to $7.5 million in endorsements. So this is kind of the Lance Armstrong kind of thing she's facing into. So this is what we put up with last year. I think we got this one right. So enjoy.
Moving to France and partnering with the longtime coach of Serena Williams. But already, Patrick Mouratoglou is having an impact.
He brought that fire back super fast. I didn't really expect that because I'm not very open to people and it's not easy for me to trust in somebody. So when I trust, I can make changes. The way of practice, the way he talks actually to me, the whole schedule is like making me be more professional than before. And working every day, I think you have a better chance to get to the top back. And I start believing that I still have the game to be there. It was just the mentality that at 30, you are just old for tennis and you have to stop. So yeah.
Well, second life is starting.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Patrick, with Serena and everything she
has
won in her 30s.
It's a little bit too much.
What do you say to that?
We've seen players play the best tennis at 30 plus. Serena same, because yeah, between 30 and 35 were her best years. So I think she's fresh. But really.
Yeah.
I
feel she's fresh, completely.
Just getting started, Simona.
Yeah, the second part of the career. So I'm starting now, yeah, and I have great people around me, so I'm confident.
The way of practice is making me be more professional than before. Working every day, you have a better chance to get back to the top. I have great people around, so I'm confident. Now, Simona Halep, she won 2 Grand Slam titles in 2018 and 2019. She's a world number 1 at the year's end twice in 2017, 2018. So for 15 years, she wants us to believe that she wasn't quite professional enough to be at the top of her game. In many ways, people said that she sold her soul for one last ride when she signed on this April, May with Patrick Mouratoglou, the French-based coach and, of course, academy owner. This year she progressed and she was doing better and better. She won the Canadian Open for the 3rd time in August, setting all sorts of records along the way. And then there was a mysterious retirement in the 2nd round of the Cincinnati Open, and then a very, very strange shock loss in the opening round of the US Open. And then she announced she's going to take a bit of time off to get divorced and to have her nose straightened. But back to the beginning and Mr. Mouratoglou, okay, when he said that he was going to give her full support, and then this happened. So it's an interesting question, or an interesting interview after the French Open.
Can you explain us exactly what happened out there, what you were suffering from?
A little panic attack, let's say. It's new and I didn't know how to handle it. It was tough to breathe and I was not very clear in what I'm doing. So it was a very difficult moment.
Did you ever suffer something like that before?
No, not really. But I can understand it happened because I had 2 tough years with injuries and a lot of pressure with pandemic and stuff. So probably today I just broke down a little bit. My brain was not very strong. But now I'm good, and that's why I'm smiling, because it was really difficult after the match.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Simona. I just wondered what's next on the schedule for you in the coming weeks.
Well, when I went out of actually the court and then when I was feeling better, Patrick asked me already where do I play next week. So looks like I am back at the work, and I have just to get ready in a few days.
So she had to go off the court having a panic attack, or supposed panic attack. She was nauseous, she felt dizzy, she had shakes, she couldn't feel her feet, is what she said, and she couldn't focus for part of the time. But of course, her new coach, said, where are you going to play next week? Now, I first met Simona in 2009 in Makarska, Croatia. She beat a former player of ours, and a guest of our show, Ksenia Prvak. She reached the final. She was a runner. She was a grinder. She was a fitness freak, always in top shape. The year before that, she had a breast reduction to help her play better. Tennis was everything for her. So she was only 17, 18 when I first met her. 2010, a player I worked with beat her for the loss of just 4 games, and this was after a week before she'd lost to another guest of our show, Vesna Galons. I met Simona again in 2012, just after Vesna had bounced her at the Moscow Open in 2 sets. And then in 2013, the last time I met Simona, before she hit the big time, she was again in Moscow, where she didn't drop a set and only lost 15 games in 4 matches on her way to winning the title and beating the quite interesting and superb Sam Stosur. She blossomed under Wim Fissette, then Darren Cowell, Daniel Dobry, Darren Cowell again, and Dobry again, before she turned around and reached the end of the line with Mouratoglou. Roxadustat. Remember that. This prevents anemia by increasing the production of erythropoietin. Okay, it also stimulates the production of hemoglobin and red blood cells. It's supposed to help battle the effects of chronic kidney disease. It was approved last year for medical use in the European Union. And just before you ask, erythropoietin, where have I heard that before? Why is that familiar to me? It's also known as EPO, the one that Lance took, the one that cyclists love to take, that increases the capacity, increases the performance, that you can go longer and you can recover faster. It's the one that the UFC have said it is a scourge in their sport. Some of the side effects of roxadustat is pulmonary hypertension or high blood pressure. It's nausea and dizziness and uncontrollable shakes and an inability to focus or to see properly. The signs of a panic attack, the panic attack that Simone felt in the second round loss in the French Open this year. Well, we added it all up. We laid it out for you. We showed you where it was going, who she was working with, how she started getting this stuff, how she failed her first dope test, and now she's failed again. And it's the blood. The bloods are doing it. So again, the EPO works in the blood. She's failing now for blood. This is 2 strikes. She's out. It's done. It's a huge, big problem for her. As a couple of weeks ago, I actually reported it on our Telegram channel that she is being big time done by her sponsors. Okay, so this is a very, very serious situation. Remember, if you want to follow us on Telegram, we have daily news going out. It is on at @capital_sports. We have videos, we have information, we have sound bites as well, and very, very good place. Of course, you can catch Andy Mack there as well, because he is working with there quite a bit, and of course Andrew Flint and the rest of the gang as well. So remember, Telegram at @capital_sports. Now, our final segment of tonight's show, and then I'll let you all go away, and I'll run away as well. Actually, I want to have a cup of tea. I'm going to watch golf. Excuse me, I'm going to watch golf. The last segment of the show was aired last year, just before the England-Iran game in the World Cup. Now, we had some superb guests on during our World Cup show series. It really worked well. Our previews were really good. And one guest, with great guests, every single guest who came on lit up the night for us. Nima Rusari really opened eyes. Now, Nima's been with us for many years on the radio. He's been with us before as well on the show. And then for the World Cup, he just came on and commented. And I just sat back and let him speak at the start for a view from someone who is of a different background, not just a European background. Because, of course, we're all sitting there. We've got 3 Irish people and an English guy, and a guy who's Swedish Iranian, who was educated in England. And we're speaking about it, about the World Cup in Qatar. this became very, very important because, of course, it's something that drew a huge divide and the amount of nonsense that was going on. And Keane McGivney also, when he speak about alcohol, he doesn't drink, but the whole situation then around alcohol. This is the most, for me, it was an interview that really pushed us to the next level and a positive level on that. So for the last little bit of the show, just sit back and enjoy. Again, it will maybe make you ask some questions of yourself, of the world around us, of sport, but more importantly, you actually enjoy sport more after this, because we come to a consensus at the very end and realize that sport is massively important for us all. We all love our sports teams. We all love our sports athletes. We all love being involved in sports. And that's the most important thing for us, because I always say sport is life. Sport is what kept me speaking with my dad when I was a teen, when I got into my 20s, that even now on a Sunday, I do miss not being able to pick up the phone and call my dad and say, did you see that match? It was a standard part, no matter where I was in the world. Even when it was difficult in Canada, when I couldn't get phone, it was expensive to make phone calls back in the 90s. People don't understand what it really was. I was in Germany or in Saudi Arabia, going to an internet cafe in Jeddah and sitting there listening to Gaelic games from Ireland with headphones on, with guys playing games all around me, and me just like listening to a radio station from Ireland, and then going back to my house and phoning Dad, saying, Dad, that was a great match. Again, sport are very, very central. I find the same now with Tim as well. It's very central between us, and it's important as well. I was watching Leinster lose yesterday. He was watching it. After he lost, he just wrote, damn. So there you go. And sports is what's connecting us right now as well. So this last little section, I know you enjoyed it. I know it will make you think. And again, most important, thinking is a good thing, especially in relation to sports. So sit back and enjoy. Eastwood has gone into the dark, and I'm delighted to say that we have on a friend of our show. He's won a couple of times and has been always absolutely superb with us. Nima is it okay if I say Nima Rutsari, or should I say your full name?
No, Tavallo is it's two surnames, so it's Nima Tavallo Rutsari. But yeah, I mean, whatever's easier for you to pronounce, mate. That's fine. I'm all right. I'm easy. I'm not going to be offended, I promise.
That's extremely understanding. As someone with an unusual name,
well, it's just
I don't play that way.
It's just the kind of guy I am. What can I say?
Yeah. Nima, I'm going to start to ask you right away a couple of things. We're going to, you've been very, very upfront in terms of with social, political, and sporting views. So I want to start off and just give you a moment to speak about the situation surrounding the World Cup in Qatar. We've been discussing it, a few times even tonight as well. You might have seen it. Are we seeing the dying embers, or even the growing flames of imperialism or colonialism at play, or is it just a fact that maybe we should all try to understand each other just a little bit better?
I think it's it's exactly that. The old world, the so-called rules-based order is dying. The Anglo-Saxon Empire is at its dying moments, and there's a new world order. There's a new world order emerging, and it's a new world order that is based on multipolarity after 30 years of unipolarity, and we see that in football as well. It's the very notion. I mean, if you were to listen to any Western media outlet, mainstream Western media outlet, you'd think that corruption in FIFA was invented when Russia and Qatar got the World Cup. Before, no problems. After, no problems. That's just not the case. If you don't contextualize, as they don't do, then you'd watching them and listening to them. You'd think that. But that's just not how it is. We know that FIFA is an incredibly corrupt organization from pretty much from the day it was from its very inception to today. No one's denying that. No one's denying that Qatar got the World Cup through bribery. But, didn't the Germany in 2006? What about every other tournament as well then? Or did that just happen in Qatar? And as for who Qatar are and the Qatari government, I draw a very strong line between the government of a country and the people of that country and the culture of that country. And I think it's very dangerous to equate those two with one another. And what do I mean by that? I mean that Qatar, the Qatari government, the Qatari state, is an invention of the British Empire. Remember that empire on which the sun never set? That's when it was invented. And they have, because of its geographical strategic position, and because of its an importance in military operations nonetheless, together with the oil and everything else, they've sold weapons. They still sell weapons. I mean, you'd think, based on the reporting in the mainstream media in the West, that Qatar is not an ally. Qatar is an ally of the West militarily. Many people may not know this, but the entire U.S. military command, the military HQ during the illegal invasion of Iraq, which resulted in the death of 1 million people, all of that, the entire military command was stationed in Qatar. Same thing when they set Libya on fire and turned it into this failed banana republic. It was from Qatar they did these things. Now, I think as human beings, our brains should be able to process several pieces of information at once. No one is defending what Qatar being a dictatorship, or that it's policies on women's rights, on gay rights for migrant workers. That's no one's debate. No one's even defending that remotely. What I'm simply saying is that, well, we know of the reports that migrant workers, regardless anywhere on this earth, have a very good working conditions. And I mean, just was it 2018 when I think it was the Daily Mail that reported that the British kits were made by people who made 21p an hour in a third world country. I mean, this is what I mean, contextualize. But they don't want to do that, because if they do contextualize that, they will have to admit that they are actually military allies of that same government who they claim to hate so much. And that's not something they're willing to do. And so instead, they want to hammer home the point about, Muslim, and of course, them Qatari people being Muslim and brown, and the racial aspect of this is huge as well. So they hammer home those points. And I mean, the last week alone, the amount of stupid things I've seen, just lies. I mean, it's as if you need to lie and invent lies to criticize the Qatari state for. Remember that notion of Qatar bribing the players in Ecuador? Well, we just saw how well that went. Didn't go so well. Maybe the check didn't clear. I mean, come on. Can we stop? Can we please be serious here? Or which prompted actually the president of the Ecuadorian League to come out and say, an idiot says something stupid and we have to spend hours to talk about it. End quote.
Nima, this is, I think, what we go through all the time. I think we saw with Russia, for example, in 2018. We discussed it with Alexander Zotov here on the show, and it's one of those things where a paper never refused ink, and the more outrageous, the more shocking it is, the better it's going to sell. And unfortunately, this is what's needed. People. If we all look at sport and we love our sport, you love Inter Milan. I'm just as you like you. I mean, Isa loves love-hate with Tipperary. Keane, God help him, loves Kerry, and Andrew. Well, Man United. What can we say? It's kind of one of those things where when you see it happening, if you love sport, you kind of go, oh, I don't know, and it upsets you. And I think it's right. I did mention at the start about migrant workers that. I remember today, and Isolt and Keane, you remember this, when a socialist member of our government, parliament, I blanked his name with Joe, I just blanked his name, he was talking about Turkish migrant workers being housed very poorly in Ireland, living in shipping containers, and saying that this is wrong. And a member,
they were working for a mine. The company begins with G. I know the one you're on about. I can see it in my head.
And they were working here as well in Russia, and I know how they treated their workers here as well, and how they worked as well. And I'll explain it in just a moment. But Joe Higgins, thank you, Keane. Joe Higgins, said that, this is wrong, it's really bad. And a member of the government turned around and said, Joe, you take care of your kebabs, you're all right. And it was like, what? And the guy who said it, I would have great time for. He's a lovely fella. He's very intelligent, very kind, the most non-racist person you could ever say. But he thought it was funny. And so with the Turkish workers here in Russia, I remember when they were building the Moscow city skyscrapers, which we can see from our windows and that. So when they were building that, they were bringing in they were basically busing in workers to work 12-hour days. They were coming from the eastern part of Turkey, very, very poor. They were brought in. They literally just usually slept on the buses, or they slept in containers. Now, sleeping in a container in Russia, even if it's kept warm, it's still blooming cold. That was the labor that was needed to do it. And they had these magnificent Moscow city skyscrapers. And I do remember when it was either Gala or Fenerbahce won the Turkish league in, would have been 2008, would have been. They had a gigantic flag placed across one of the work sites, huge flag, and they were celebrating and joy. But you can see them that they had no rights. They had no rights. Sorry, Isot.
Is it, I suppose, I get the point entirely. Migrant workers across the globe, wherever they are by the very nature of being migrant workers, generally in the worst position. Is it maybe, and I don't think it's solely to do with Qatar, is there a latent sense for us all that we're now more aware of it, that we're more conscious of the migrant workers here in this instance? We probably were quite conscious of them in South America. We were less conscious in other tournaments. But then in the back of our head, there may be that level of ability to go, they're migrant workers who are dying for the sake of us watching a football tournament. And perhaps on some level there is, for some people, that's now creeping in and going, because I know I find myself watching more and more sports that are coming from Saudi Arabia, that are coming from Yas Island, has a huge amount of UFC. I like combat sports, just Nima to explain, I watch a huge amount of combat sports. And I think what galls me perhaps with Qatar, and it's not the lack of separation of state and tournament, but it's the feeling that the state have an overall control on everything to do with the tournament. And we are basically feeding migrant workers who may be getting paid, etc. And that might be good, but we're basically doing it for our own entertainment in a very corrupt tournament.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we are. But my issue is that it's, well, how is that news? I mean,
but perhaps the fact that we're highlighting it rather than just...
No, I get that. But the problem is that it's never highlighted. I mean, for Poland and Ukraine, when they held the Euros, at one building site, just one stadium, 8 people died. You'd have to dig and dig online to find anything written and reported about that.
One of the things, Nima, that we did discuss though the last time was about the disinformation coming up to the Russian competition, that there were so many people. The big focus for Russia was hooliganism, and this time it's a different focus. There is always one story that the media will run with solely.
They did the same. Racism and hooliganism was the same for Ukraine and Poland 2012, and it was well managed, well maintained, and it really was, the same as Russia managed their hooligan problem. Ukraine and Poland did the same.
I must say, I think the point though about the ally point is so important, and it's the same with Saudi Arabia. They're a military ally of the US, so
Okay,
it's a very good point.
But just on that point, I mean, it's like, again, I don't have I've not said anything for the last 12 years when this entire machine has been going. I've been waiting for the context. I've been waiting for them to contextualize this. I've been waiting for them to bring up that actually maybe, look, we all know who the Qatari state and government are. What about if we don't sell them weapons anymore? What about if we don't prop them up anymore? What about, I mean, if you really, really care about these things, it feels to me the entire debate is like this, where they've created a Frankenstein's monster. The monster is loose, and instead of being pissed off with Dr. Frankenstein, they're virtue signaling against the monster. The monster doesn't care, and it's just absolutely. I mean, it makes no sense. There is no logic and coherence in this situation, and of course, just take the beer. This horrible outrage about the beer at the stadiums. Now, in France, in 2016, they did the same thing. They didn't sell beer at the stadium during games because, as it turns out, drunk people are difficult to manage and misbehave. I mean, who knew? Who knew?
Amazing.
I mean,
and that is solely down to it being a Muslim country.
Well,
that's
of course,
why that's such an easy one.
Exactly. This is what it's because they're Muslim, and if they're those dodgy dark Muslims, if they back out on this in the 11th hour, what are they going to do? What are they going to back out on as well? I mean, it's just, and then you have. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this, but then you go on Sky, Rupert Murdoch, Sky Sport, and I use this term seriously, internationally renowned village idiot, Kaveh Solhekol, standing there pretending like he's some sort of wartime correspondent, talking about how normal fans can have a pint of beer and doing his best EastEnders character impersonation whilst doing it to connect with the audience he's trying to entice. I mean, get out of here. It's like, who buys this bollocks? Excuse me.
I'm going to say so Ireland is obviously a country known for its drinking. We have recently had I know this may sound shocking. We have recently had national newspapers run stories, and Keane, obviously you'd have seen these, about fans complaining about people going out during games to get drinks. So in Ireland, where we're all about drinks, I'm one of those people who, when people go out, I scowl at them because I don't want people drinking at games. I want people to sit in their seats and watch. So, in fairness,
I heard that from a friend of mine, big rugby fan, big Leinster fan, and he loves rugby. He's from schools up, and he coaches his club on the 12 team. He's a real club man.
I would ban alcohol at matches.
He said he can't understand why. Then all of a sudden he's sitting there 10 minutes into a half, so either first, second half, people are saying, can you move? And they're there with their beers and they're slopping it over. And he says, and he's sitting there with his daughter and son. He said, it drives me out. Now, I will say, when I see him in a couple of weeks, we're going to go for a drink. He is happy to have a beer, but and again, I love going to hockey in ice hockey in Germany and sitting there with a beer there, but it's a different situation. But when I did see it with the World Cup, it was like kind of, they can't get beer. My mom, so Mary, Anna will be very happy to hear this. My mom said, they're complaining about not being able to drink. Surely that's a good thing. That was my mom's reaction, and that wasn't only her. A lot of people said that. Cian, sorry, you're agreeing or disagreeing?
I'm agreeing because I sat in the Aviva during the New Zealand game a couple of years ago, and I had to sit sideways, quite literally. I was facing front for the anthems, and as you say, 5 or 10 minutes into the game, I happened to be at the end of the row, and I ended up nearly sitting sideways for the full 80 minutes, and it drove me absolutely demented. Now, I don't drink, so that's a big part of it too. I got ballistic.
It's ludicrous. You should not be the one having to sit sideways here at two men games. They don't sell alcohol in the stadium here, and even then, that's not even about alcohol. This is just basic manners. And this actually comes on to a point I really do want to make about Qatar is manners. Like people walking, I was picked the end of the road because there's extra leg room and I've got long legs, I need them. People walk past and there's plenty of space for them to just walk around. And they insist on going straight through as if they have some divine right to walk this way because whatever they're buying is more important. I'm sorry, but no, it isn't. Firstly, if you go to a sports occasion, an event with other people, you are going with other people, so you pay respect to the basic fact that other people exist, not only you. They may have other priorities, like what they're bloody paying to watch in the first place, right? First thing. And on a second level, a much bigger level, this is not to say everybody who goes to Qatar must have exactly the same moral priorities as Qataris, but if you are choosing to visit that country, and I'm talking here specifically about those physically going, you are going as a visitor. You are going to their country. They are hosting you. So you respect at a basic level, some level of manners towards that country. If it is so unpalatable to you, if it's so disgusting, don't go and protest. You have a right to protest, but don't go as a visitor and then start saying, God damn it, where's my beer? I mean, that's
But
just one thing.
It's a sense of entitlement.
Entitlement.
It's
Yes.
entitlement. It's this a sense of entitlement that wherever the West, Western, this narrative of Western cultural hegemony, that we are by definition the moral superiors and cultural superiors and just general superior to anyone and everyone else, and anyone who does not conform to the way we want, whenever we want, however we want, we destroy them, we rip them apart. This is just it's so blatant.
Nima,
and again,
the garden to the jungle.
Oh,
Yeah,
exactly. Remember that?
The garden to the
Remember
jungle.
that? The garden. Yeah, the garden and the jungle. Remember that? Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, that actually, I know a lot of people got upset at that, but I got to say, I was actually happy about that because at least he told what he thinks. He said what he thought for once.
Exactly.
He revealed himself.
Okay.
And in that, even in saying that, Nima, like when he said it, when he tried to contextualize, he was trying to say, look, we do this, and we want to try and spread this. I understood him. He wasn't being bad, but that, as you said, that's the kind of the view. And we speak about, I say, with FIFA, as you start off with FIFA, and we'll go quick on to the England-Iran game in a moment. The thing about FIFA, Stanley Rouse had taken over, and for many, many years, it was extremely corrupt and run under this kind of like this patriarchy the whole way up. However, Stanley Rouse, for example, in 1945, it was Stanley Rouse, made sure to get the Dynamo Moscow football team to go across the tour. Well, the plan was for the British Isles. They played Chelsea, Arsenal, Cardiff City, who were third division at the time, and Glasgow Rangers. The original Glasgow Rangers, not the one that's been restarted, Sevco. They toured there in a bid to raise funds for the orphans. I think it was the orphans of Leningrad, and they wanted to try and bond, because the British, the English, looked at the Soviets as this friendly nation. They were our friends and ours, and so on. It was money was in it, the whole lot. But then very, very quickly, while sport was great and the teams played well, Dynamo were very impressive. It was funny because the Dynamo team, when they came out to the pitch, they stretched. They were doing their stretching and their sprints. The English guys were, this is no joke, standing having a smoke. And it was like, what are these mad Russians doing? But for the man who was in charge of British football, or English football, and world football at the time, he wanted to reach out and to unite countries. That doesn't seem to be anywhere at the moment. It seems to be just
it's about imposing one's own values because of being convinced of one's own of one's own fantasticness. I'm so amazing, you have to be like me. Why don't you want to be like me? I'm so awesome. It's like it's sickening, it's weird, and it's strange, and it's not going to work because the rest of the world, this isn't 1922. Look, the age of Lawrence of Arabia is over, long gone. Please welcome to the 21st century. It's 2022. It's not going to happen. It's over. It's finished. The global South will not be talked down to anymore.
The global South will not be talked down to anymore. Closing those wars, I think, as you can understand the discussion, it was very open, it was very good, it was very positive, and we all joined in. Everyone had something to say, and of course, we all contributed to it. That's, again, what we're all about here at Capital Sports 3.0. So I'm going to leave. We know it's a big week for Leeds United. They are struggling to try and get ahead of Everton because, of course, Leeds are just in complete collapse. They lost 3-1 to West Ham, who saved themselves for the season, but it's going to be very difficult in the English Premier League this year for Leeds to stay up. It looks like they will be going down. There'll be one team going down. It's going to be very tough for them to stay up. Of course, they have Man City will be crowned champions on Wednesday. Leicester City will be going to play Newcastle tomorrow. That's on Monday. And that's going to be very, very tough because Newcastle are chasing down second place. Trying to keep in third place because Liverpool are creeping up there behind them, even though both Newcastle and United have a game in hand of Liverpool. But it will look like it's going to finish Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle, and United. Those will be the top four. Liverpool will be in the Europa League, and then Brighton and Aston Villa chasing hard for the Conference League places. And so again, well done to Brentford, who won a London Derby against Tottenham this weekend, beating them 3-1. dragging Tottenham back down to mid-table mediocrity. But again, the biggest shock of the season, which wasn't a shock for us because we called it all along on Capital Sports, was the collapse of Liverpool. We knew it was going to happen. We said it was going to happen. It's happened, and now Mr. Klopp might be on the way out. Leicester, of course, they are struggling. If they can try to get a couple of points, they will actually push themselves back up again. But again, it's very, very tight at the bottom. Leicester do have a game in hand over Leeds. If they win that, then they go ahead of them. They will actually go ahead of Everton as well on goal difference. So Everton will be back in the relegation zone. So it's all play for next weekend, this week and next weekend. And we'll see what's going to happen, of course, back next Sunday night with more Capital Sports 3.0 and a very special guest from Germany to talk an awful lot more sense than we usually do about the Red Bull madness that's going on, and also a very, very dark series of secrets behind the Red Bull brand, and well, especially the Red Bull sports brand, which is more important. So again, to all of you who tuned in to us tonight with this nice kind of recap show, to my co-hosts who are like chilling tonight and let me do the heavy lifting for once, they always do it for me. I say take care of yourselves, everyone, take care of each other, and see you next Sunday, same time, same place.